Alright, so let's build a flag object. I built this kind of quickly as a request. This is a carry-on from things I was showing in all three sections about how to build drapes or curtains or something similar. And it's using a different system. It's similar to what we've been using with splines, but it adds a new little kink into it. But it's an interesting solution or opportunity to making something like a flag. So I just kind of whipped that out, but let's go ahead and see if we can make something a little bit more authentic and realistic looking. So I'm going to use Photoshop to basically establish what I wanted for my flag object, but I'm going to also build an actual 3D object in 3ds Max using splines. And so the goal on this one was actually getting it to look and act like a a canvas hanging between items, and then we use a alpha map that I quickly put together in Photoshop, and I can actually make this a little bit cleaner, a little bit more realistic if I spend a little bit more time. So I'm going to record this and then I'll chop it up and see how it goes. So the idea, let's build so we want to build a canvas, so we can build a new one. What I'm going to do is build a flag that'll hang vertically. And what I want to create is something that shows where it's anchored. It's like it's how it's woven up. So if it's something like it's like a poorly made flag, not something that has serious grommets or something, but it's actually something that's like hanging because somebody found a cheap, like a sheet, or made it handmade. We can make it a handmade one. Let's do that. So it's like a sheet, so hanging down. So let's go ahead and build that using splines. And what we're going to do is create an object set that uses splines to let's do wall base. I'm going to rename this. It's going to use the spline objects to actually build the top and bottom of this cloth-like object. So we'll call these flags. Give a flag. Grab those. We're just going to drag them in here. So everything's in there. Great. So flags have their own setup. Find you. So we're going to start in the, right in the middle, and we're just going to put the base of the bottom of it right there. So what we're doing is building a vertical flag. Let's see. Flag. What am I building? Yeah, Texas. Town. What we got here? Alton. Austin. Let's do Austin. Right click, open the tab so we can see the whole thing. We'll just grab, put you in there, close that. Sorry, we're using this wall base to hang our flag. We'll use that as a height reference. We'll activate the flag layer editor. That way we'll make it the one that we're using. Alright, so let's go here, pop. And we're using a line, and I'm going to build it from the top view. Right, so like it's draping. So let's make it kind of like it's big. Give it some kind of irregularity. Don't go crazy though, just a little bit. I mean, I've probably put too many. I don't need all that many, but I'm going to leave them because it makes for a nice shape. I got 7 verts. I'll record me actually doing the next step, which is going to rearrange them in a second. That's good though. 7 verts, 8 verts, that's fine. I'm going to hold shift and make a clone and put it up here. It's going to be big right now. We'll fix the shape and all that stuff in a little bit. But now I want to make this a little less dramatic. And we're going to have a cable hanging up somehow. So I haven't really thought that through yet, but we're going to get there. Part of the fun of this stuff is just learning how to create your visual. Whatever you're thinking about, whatever the actual reference is. That's just such a fun thing to do. I love that about this stuff. How do I build that asset? What does it look like? What should it look like? Alright, so that's pretty good. Yeah, no. And we're going to add detail here in a little bit. But you can see here that I have two distinct shapes. So let's start with this. Keep it simple. What we're going to do, we'll go top down. So I'm going to right click and attach, not refine, excuse me, attach. Boom. Alright, so now we got 2 vert sets. Now what I want you to notice is I picked the top one first and then I attached the second one. This yellow dot they're both on the same side because I made a duplicate of these splines. The yellow dot is the first vert on this segment set. So basically you want to make sure that the yellows are lined up. I'll get to why here in a little bit. So now we've got that set up. What we're going to be using is a new set of tool sets, or we've seen some of these already, but the patch and spline editing. What we want to do is actually create new geometry. And what we're going to do is first off create a cross section. And that actually is setting up the creation of the geometry. So I'll show the wall. So I'm going to hide the wall, Alt Q. Let's open this bad boy up. Right, cool. So what we've got here is the top and the bottom. There's no geometry. Right, it's just a wireframe, and it is a spline. You can actually go in here, hit Edit Spline, and get after the vertices. So if I were to create these as corner Beziers, I can actually make changes to the shape of the splines themselves, which adds a lot of fun when it gets to a creative level. Let's get rid of that real quick. Let's go keep it right at the cross section. And keep it linear right now. I'll play with these all you want later, but once you get understanding what the system does, just wait on that. Linear keeps it simple and easy to control. The next step after cross section is adding surface. With that there, it creates the actual geometry. So what we're looking at, if you look, you can see there's some smooth shading aspects to it. And it looks a little different than the way edit polys are in wireframe and shaded view like this is. So shaded view, and we're already starting to see a curtain type, drape type scenario. So this is already starting to shape up pretty cool. We may make it a lot smaller. So, and I'd probably do that down here in the line tool by grabbing both segments and just, oopsie, scaling them. Then close that and get up to top level and go right there. So that's a little, we can do that. Cool. It's still big, but we can scale things down. We're going to add more detail here in a little bit. But this is what's really awesome about this, is that it creates geometry for us. Now, a key thing about this surface is that it's created an object called an edit patch. We're not really going to be using them, but edit patches are an old use of tools that give us organic features. It's still used in other industries, but in games we just stick to edit poly to make our geometric forms, or use ZBrush and then convert from there. So right here what we have is a patch object, and there's steps right here, so keep an eye on that. What I'm going to do here next is put an edit poly on here, and that gives us an actual display of how much geometry there is in here, and it's pretty dense considering what's going on. And there's a couple ways we can change this. If I go to line, I can turn on test tube, and remember that interpolation, which is how dense the actual line object is. We can kind of pull that down a little bit, but it's all like corner vert, so it's not too bad. But you notice how it doesn't really change much. Now let's go up here to back to the surface, turn on test tube again, see right there, and then change these steps and see how the geometry changes and gets lower and a little bit more respectable usage, and we can kind of play around with this. Now let's go ahead and put that back up so we can have some fun with this real quick. So we're learning this. I want to go back into lines, go to vertices, select all these vertices down here in the bottom and make them smooth. Oh yeah. And then I can actually take this right here, scale them up a little bit. We're going to make the pivot point based on the selection. Come with us, join us over here, Vert. And we can do some stuff like that. So that's great. So now what we have is kind of something that looks heading like a curtain. And so let's make it look like a flag. So let's grab this vert here, just shove it down. And that vert. And that vert. That vert. So let's put this one back up. Let's put these back up. If we want, we can actually turn this one into a Bezier and convert that right there, and turn that one into a Bezier and turn that one like that, and then actually we just need to put this right here. Alright, so it's real dense though. You know, do we need that much density in here? Not really, but it's really nice to see. There's no doubt. It definitely looks better. So let's go back to surface and let's reduce this step count. And we're not doing too bad here. It gives us a lot of good detail. If I hit 7 on my keyboard, I get the amount of polygons right here. It's 72 polys. Like, let's go to add poly. So that's 72 polys. That's not dense at all. But if we hang a lot of them, it will get pretty heavy. But now we can look at how this could, we can actually hang a wire off this. So let's get our wall back. And let's go ahead and shrink this guy down a little bit. Let's do that. There we go. That's nice. So what we can do is we can go back down here to the vertices, the lines. The vertices of the lines. Come up here and just snag that up here. You know, it gets to a point where the Beziers don't offer a lot when you have if you don't have too much geometry. But this is enough here, and you know, like it just, if you want, you can go and make all of these vertices. Like I made these all smooth again, so that it looks nice and round and soft and casual and relaxed. And so here, drop this over here. Put those two vertices where they intersect with the wall. Go back to top level, go back to vertex mode, and then put these dudes I think I can probably get rid of this vertex or just tighten it up a little bit more. That. That's pretty cool. Just basically giving some shape. Now there is a cloth. So let's. Oh yeah, and then we're gonna take these dudes and drape them down a little bit to match the top level a little bit. There we go. So there is our, go back to the top level. Make sure you watch your sub-objects. Get the top level of it. You can walk all the way up and see there it is. And we can still get rid of some polygons. We don't need all those. Remember, the idea is we need the polygons where we need the structure, but not where we don't need it. So if I right click and make this an editable poly object, all of the good work's there, so I can move forward here. What I'm going to do is double click here, kind of pick and choose some spaces. I want to keep a lot of the structure that's here. I don't want to lose too much. But there's some pieces that can definitely go. And with that, I'm going to hold Control and hit backspace to get rid of segments and verts. And it's even smaller. And since we put it against the wall, we don't have to worry about the back size. It's just basically a plane that we build using splines. And using the splines, we can actually add more detail. So one of the things we can also do, I'm going to hold Shift to make another copy. I'm going to isolate this guy, and I'm going to just go ahead and crush, crush, crush. And what I want to do is add a little bit more detail. So what I want to do here is I'm going to make a copy. Remember, we did this one first, and then we did this one second. So if I go here and hold Shift and drag here, let's see what happens, because I don't know what the order is on this, but we're just going to rotate it, and I don't know. We'll just scale it a little bit so I have some little change. So now, remember, what we're using was on the patch spline editing, and then we go to cross section. Oh, look at that. So remember, these are splines. I can actually go here and add an edit spline modifier and grab this. Now if I move this, all of a sudden it's over here. So it basically went in order of creation, which is 1, 2, and then 3. And that's not what we want. So let's change that. So let's backtrack. Change, get rid of that, And what I want to do is actually, I'm going to detach these guys separately, and down here where it says detach, what I'm going to do is just leave this blank. So usually I like to make copies, but this time I'm just going to detach it right off. And then take this one and detach it right off. Now that I have that understanding that I got to go in order, what I'm going to do now is hit and reattach in order. So now I'll go 1 and 2. Now that I've got that, and I got 1, 2, 3, I can do cross section, and it's clean. And then I can do surface and start the whole process again. Have some fun with that. I hope that gives you guys some inspiration. So that's how you can build a quick flag. Cool.